I'm Chris Wiley. I teach a variety of music topics: classical music, popular music, musical theatre. And I know what you might be thinking. I hope you're thinking that sounds fun and interesting. I like to think that it is, but learning could always be more so. And that's why I turned to student response systems over a decade now to make my teaching more fun, more interesting, and crucially, more interactive. I've been using student response systems in my teaching for over a decade, but I've also been talking about my use of response systems and writing about it in various case studies. One of the things I'm concerned to do is promote the use of student response systems in disciplines that are not typically associated with them, in the arts and humanities in particular. I'm particularly concerned to dispel various myths that have emerged around student response systems, not least the myth that student response systems are only suited to disciplines like the STEM disciplines, the sciences and the business disciplines. I hope to persuade you in the course of today's webinar that they have a place in the arts and humanities as well. Another myth I'm keen to dispel is the idea that student response systems are just for dealing with large classes, and they are brilliant for dealing with large classes, but I've used student response systems with smaller classes. Here's an example of me using the handsets with a class of just 10 students. So student response systems are a really expedient and fantastic way of gathering and displaying data from students elegantly, irrespective of the class size. Another myth I'm keen to dispel is the idea that if you use student response systems, you have to fundamentally reconceptualize your whole teaching method. There are some pedagogies, and we'll talk more in due course about one of those. There are some pedagogies for which student response systems do require reconceptualizing your teaching model, building the whole class around a slide, around a question that is at the heart of the class and forms the foundation of the class. But there are other ways of using student response systems that are rather more quick and rapid, that just change the pace of the lecture for a few minutes, breaking up the lecture, adding some variety by doing something different. And a lot of what I do with student response systems falls into that category. The final myth is that student response systems are just for multiple choice questions that have a definitively right or wrong answer. That there's so much that you can do with the right or wrong multiple choice question, but I like to move beyond the multiple choice question, beyond the definitively right or wrong question as well.
The virtual environment, I think, in many ways, makes that even more challenging. So the more you interact with your students, the better off you will be. Now, one of the things that I do is I always ask my students what they liked, what they didn't like, what could have been done better. I've done that forever. And it's even more important in this virtual environment. Like many of you, I was thrust into a virtual environment in the spring and then taught another virtual class over the summer. And the absolute number one factor that students across the board liked and asked for was these interactive questions. They felt like that kept them engaged. It gave them the ability for personal assessment. How am I doing? So it's something I encourage you to include in whatever kind of presentation you have. These interactive questions are very, very helpful. Pepper your presentation with interactive questions. You get to learn what they're thinking, what they're feeling, whatever it is you're seeking. It gives them an opportunity to participate, and they enjoy that.
Our president came up with the idea, and here's how he pitched it. Here was his pitch, or maybe even a mandate. I don't know which. We'll call it a pitch for today. If we had a student on a deserted island with nothing but a cell phone and excellent bandwidth, could they finish their degree? And really what that spoke to was something a lot deeper than just mobile learning, because we know a lot of people make things responsive, right? You can go anywhere that's responsive, but have that mobile first mentality where it's an excellent experience mobile, and even a deeper learning experience mobile is where we took that initial pitch that he gave us. So how can we create something that was a better learning experience than a face-to-face or a traditional online? How can we get there? And we spent probably 2 years figuring that out, and we were actually able to start implementing pre-COVID, and then it really took off during these times. of COVID, and we looked at it, we were able to reimagine learning. And what I mean by that is mobile gives us context now. Now people learn within the context of their life like they never have before, because that thing's with them. And one of the big reasons why we partnered with you at Turning is the ability for people to engage and touch that screen, not just be a passive learner like you talked about, to be actively engaged in a learning process and have control over it. So it's been a great process to do that. So thanks to our president for throwing down the gauntlet with the deserted island.